Coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast News this week.
Lawful cannabis businesses have been unable to open accounts, and employees of those businesses have been debanked. This shouldn't be happening.
That's Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren at this week's Banking, Finance, and Urban Affairs Committee hearing that uninvited the cannabis industry because it's still federally illegal.
There's a cannabis banking issue that deals with SARS as well, where I hope the Safe Banking Act, which was a good step forward, but needs to go further.
That's Adam Klein from the Brookings Institute to at least get the plight of the industry with the most debanking issues into the record for that 119th Congress. And a GOP congressman from Georgia adds a cannabis prohibition amendment to a bill to control fentanyl. Andrew Berenger has that story from Washington, D.C. Plus, is Pennsylvania the odds-on favorite to get adult use through that state's legislature this year? Governor Josh Shapiro is ready to sign it if his Congress can deliver. And another governor, well, with an opposite view of adult use in his state is Florida's Ron DeSantis, despite a 56% win on last year's ballot question.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of different perspectives on marijuana. It should not be in our Constitution.
Plus, when is getting 15 months in jail a good sentence? When you're facing 160 years. Joe Parsons has the story of Don Morris's sentencing from Virginia on Cannabis Coast to Coast News next.
And that we were given these plants. Plants should not be regulated like this.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm PCM TV founder Jimmy Young in Massachusetts, who's filling in for Alaina Pinto, who I apologize, but she's on assignment in Quebec City this weekend. I'll try my best to fill in for Alaina, but I will have a little help from my friends on the Cannabis Coast to Coast News team.
I'm Karen Black in Arizona.
I'm Andrew Berenger with the Washington, D.C. report.
I'm Tina Tasaka from Las Vegas, Nevada.
I'm Joe Parsons in Virginia.
Those are just some of the state reports we have for you this week, and a reminder that we now release our weekly news show at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, and it's live on all the social media platforms, all 7 of them, and of course, our PCM TV app available at the App Store and Google Play. Up first is more depressing news out of Washington, D.C., where it is becoming more apparent than ever that the 119th Congress does not want to move forward with any type of federal reform of cannabis. That includes the rescheduling efforts that seemed imminent under the Biden administration. With more doom and gloom from our nation's capital, here's Andrew Berenger.
I'm Andrew Berenger with the Washington, D.C. report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In a significant move affecting the cannabis industry, Republican Senators James Lankford of Oklahoma and Pete Ricketts of Nebraska have introduced new legislation that could maintain strict tax restrictions on the cannabis businesses, even if federal authorities proceed with plans to reschedule the drug. The No Deductions for Cannabis Business Act targets the IRS Code 280E, which currently prevents cannabis businesses from claiming federal tax deductions. While the expected rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 would normally allow these businesses to take standard deductions, this new bill aims to specifically prevent that benefit. Both sponsoring senators have historically opposed cannabis reform. Senator Lankford previously led efforts against cannabis rescheduling, while Senator Ricketts has taken strong stances against cannabis legalization during his time as Nebraska's governor. The timing of this bill is particularly notable as the Drug Enforcement Agency administration continues to evaluate the potential rescheduling of cannabis. While that process faces delays, the legislative effort appears to be a preemptive strike to maintain current industry restrictions, regardless of if cannabis changes on this federal scheduling status. Now, the bill remains uncertain, though supporters hope to see it be included in some upcoming reconciliation packages. If passed, it would represent a significant setback for the cannabis industry's efforts to achieve normal business status under federal law. Well, that's the Washington, D.C. report. I'm Andrew Barringer reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Now let's talk about that debanking hearing in Washington, D.C. The Finance Committee of the Senate would not allow any federally illegal industries to be heard and testify, basically prohibiting the entire cannabis industry from being heard. However, there were two champions for the cause who managed to at least recognize the $1 million, make that $1 billion cannabis industry as the biggest issue with debanking.
Debanking happens when a bank shuts down a customer's bank account because they think that that account poses a financial, a legal, or a reputational risk to the bank. Once the bank shuts someone out, the bank may share that information with companies that get paid to maintain a do not bank list, with the result that the customer is blacklisted everywhere. Lawful cannabis businesses have been unable to open accounts, and employees of those businesses have been debanked. This shouldn't be happening, and we need to figure out why and who is responsible.
There's a cannabis banking issue that deals with SARS as well, where I hope the Safe Banking Act, which was a good step forward, but needs to go further. Lastly, 5, we need to reform these do not bank list systems like CheckX, where you get kicked out for being just poor, not for fraud. The Bank On program has helped solve that, and that ought to be done across the board.
As someone who's been a victim of debanking because of our financial institutions label this media company as a marijuana-related business. Over the past 5 years, I've had our business debanked and my personal account shut down. I know I'm not alone. Plenty of people in this industry have the same issues. It's not fair, but at least I have company with hundreds of cannabis-related businesses who have all been debanked. Now, back to our state reports with Karen Black.
I'm Karen Black in Arizona. As you've probably heard, there was a big football game in New Orleans on Sunday, February 9th. A little later on, I'll share a story about an Arizona manufacturer who took over 200 orders for infused pizzas for game day. But first, let's talk about the race to become the 25th legal adult use state for cannabis sales in our country. For years, Pennsylvania has done a lot of talking about legalizing cannabis. The Keystone State already has a vibrant medical program, and now their governor, Josh Shapiro, wants to sign an adult use legalization bill. He urged his legislature to deliver one to his desk this year and said so in his State of the State address this past week. Check it out.
24 states have already legalized adult use cannabis. That includes almost every single one of our neighbors. Look, I want to be real with you. As a father of 4, and as the former chief law enforcement of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this was really hard for me. But I took the time to study it and to understand the impacts, to understand the choice between continuing the black market of drug dealing versus a highly regulated industry with protections in place for our children. Letting this business operate in the shadows, it doesn't make sense. And by doing nothing, we are making Pennsylvania less competitive. Besides, let's not kid ourselves here. Pennsylvanians who want to buy cannabis, they're just driving across the border to one of our neighbors. 5 of our neighboring states have legalized adult use cannabis. I've talked to the CEOs of the companies right across the border in Jersey and Maryland and New York who tell me that 60% of their customers in those shops are Pennsylvanians. We're losing out on revenue that's going to other states instead of helping us right here. We're losing out on an industry that over the first 5 years will bring in $1.3 billion in revenue to our Commonwealth. And so I ask you to come together and send to my desk a bill that legalizes adult use cannabis, expunges the records of people who have been convicted for non-violent possession of small amounts of marijuana. And a bill that sets reasonable regulations, protects public safety, and gives communities that suffered from the criminalization of cannabis an opportunity to succeed.
That social justice clause, in addition to a new revenue stream, may make the timing of this just perfect. No such issue in Oregon, but the price of cannabis in that state is plummeting. Here's Marianne Cursetjee.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with the Oregon Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. For another year, the news of Oregon's supply is causing ripples around the industry. The harvested weight from the most recent outdoor harvest is almost double the amount that purchased by consumers. And the 24 harvest was up again from 2023 by a whopping 28%. This again has driven prices lower and will force more producers out of business. Economist Bo Whitney has suggested that the state look to capping supply and also make it easier for consumers to purchase cannabis products. Other states allow THC beverages to be sold in grocery stores, and this would be a much welcome change to the industry if this were to take place. The average price for a gram is now $3.50, which is among the lowest in the nation. The ongoing challenge of accounts receivable only exacerbates the problem. There remains a small glimmer of hope in a possible way to legally ship product between states through the use of a state-to-state agreement. But all appearances show that federal descheduling is a long ways off. The result of this is another year of challenges for Oregon licensees. That's the Oregon Cannabis Report. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Now, while Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania has done his due diligence on studying the plant medicine, there's another governor who remains against adult use in his state. His name, of course, is Ron DeSantis from Florida. Now, that state did pass a ballot initiative for adult use with 56% of the vote, but in that state, a ballot initiative has to pass with 60% in order to make a change to their state constitution. In his State of the State address this week, DeSantis reinforced his opposition to the next 2026 Smart and Safe Florida effort for adult use and took a shot at Trulieve. That's the multi-state operator that has the largest market share for the over 800,000 medical patients in Florida.
You have one corporation that's pushing this. People do not want these massive conglomerates to control the Constitution. And you know, one of the things that was an issue last time was this idea of can you grow your own? And their amendment did not provide for that. As I read this one, what they say is they don't give you that right. They say, well, the legislature is allowed to. But guess what will happen if this passes? Do you think they're going to lobby in favor of you growing your own or against? Of course, they're going to lobby against. And they have a lot of money to be able to try to influence the legislature as a result of that. Here's the thing. There's a lot of different perspectives on marijuana. It should not be in our Constitution. If you feel strongly about it, you have elections for the legislature, go back candidates that you believe will be able to deliver what your vision is on that. But when you put these things in the Constitution, and I think, the way they wrote, there's all kinds of things going on in here. I think it's going to have big time trouble getting through the Florida Supreme Court. And I honestly, as written, I don't think it will even be on the ballot.
Another Florida resident who now lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Ave in Washington, D.C., yes, that's the White House where President Donald Trump has landed again. Needless to say, you never know what's going through his mind at any point of any day. But many of the in this industry are very concerned, while others are hopeful. He might just live up to his campaign rhetoric for federal reform of cannabis laws. You might remember a story from a few weeks ago about the merger of two lobby groups with ties to many of the biggest multi-state operators in this country. The U.S. Cannabis Council and the National Cannabis Roundtable merged their two organizations and now call themselves the U.S. Cannabis Roundtable. The hope is that their combined efforts might earn them favor for federal reform. Sure enough, Curaleaf donated $250,000 to the president's inaugural committee that was funneled through this new organization. Trulieve is also trying to buy favor with the new administration and supported fundraisers in their home state of Florida. Their CEO, Kim Rivers, was in attendance for two post-election fundraisers for the vice president, J.D. Vance. Now, only time will tell if anything will come out of Congress in this session, or maybe we have to wait another 2 years and perhaps 4. Now, since we've been mostly focused on the East Coast, let's head out to Nevada with Tina Tasaka.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. A recent federal funding freeze scare sent shockwaves through indigenous communities, many whom rely on federal aid. On January 27th, the White House's Office of Management and Budget, OMB, issued a memo pausing thousands of government programs, later rescinded after widespread confusion. A federal judge halted its implementation, but uncertainty remains. The Native American Rights Fund, NARF, warned of harm to tribal nations. The Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association responded, emphasizing the importance of self-sustaining revenue models. Rob Pirro, ICIA president, highlighted how tribes with cannabis operations remain insulated from such disruptions, unlike those heavily dependent on federal funds. Pirro urged Indigenous communities to collaborate using industries like cannabis and hemp to achieve economic sovereignty. By collaborating on cultivation, processing, distribution, and market access, tribes can create a self-reinforcing economic network that benefits all Indigenous nations, regardless of where they are in their cannabis or hemp development, Pirro said. While the freeze was lifted, its effects linger, reinforcing the need for Indigenous-led economic solutions. It's Super Bowl time, and lucky me, I ran into many brands at a recent event, and in speaking with one, they have big Hall of Famer news. Cannabis and football are collaborating, and this brand is not dropping the ball. Check this out. And it is a big day for Jeter. There's going to be a lot of people coming in, but boy, does Jeter have some fantastic news. We were just having a little talk, and we were talking about Mr. Ricky Williams.
Absolutely. So, as always, our Super Bowl drop every year for 4 years straight now. We've been working with Ricky Williams and Heisman and his company. So we normally do our drop here. It's a special box. It normally comes with either pre-rolls, cannons, or either a vape. So this year we're doing a special New Orleans edition for Ricky. So New Orleans style, colorway, everything else. But we also got a new addition to the Legend family, and that's Calvin Johnson. For all those who know, our football fans, Detroit Lion fans, Megatron was one of the highest receivers in the league just for 9 years, but he's also been a cannabis user throughout that whole time. So he also has his own company, Primitive, and you have the opportunity to join Heisman, Primitive, and Jeter all in one collaboration this year. Jeter in the house!
That's it for Nevada Highlights and Tribal Nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That will do it for the A block, or first section of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Next up, more state reports, including checking in on cannabis activities in Missouri, the home of the two-time defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ready to take your craft to the next level? Imagine faster extractions, purer products, and more profits. Sounds good, right? At Pure 5 Extraction, we've revolutionized cannabis extraction with our game-changing technology. No solvents, no heat, just the cleanest, most natural process on the market. Whether you're a boutique grower or a large-scale operation, Pure 5 has the tools to elevate your business worldwide. Visit pure5extraction.com today. Pure 5 Extraction, because your plants deserve the best.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Pro Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Debbie Fazy with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Alaina Pinto, delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast, PCM TV's weekly roundup of industry news from California to New York. I'm Alaina Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. Get your cannabis news fix with Pro Cannabis Media. We're here to keep you informed and entertained. Stay tuned and stay lifted.
Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast. I'm Kimmy Cannabis from Oklahoma. Remember to download the new PCM TV app, available at the App Store and Google Play. Next up, let's talk about the state of Texas. This week, their Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, announced that he would like to ban all THC-derived products from his state. Texas has a licensed medical program, but they also have over 7,000 stores that sell the unregulated hemp products out there. Remember, this is the state where there are now 9 cities who have voted to decriminalize possession of cannabis. A citizens advocacy group called Ground Game Texas is responsible for organizing these local initiatives, much to the chagrin of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and even the attorney general, who are all looking for ways to stop this citizens-led movement. There are a lot of citizens in Missouri who are enjoying a special weekend where their beloved Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 59. Here's Brandon Jones.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. And that's right, it's Super Bowl weekend and everybody's excited here in Kansas City. And one of the new things that's around is cannabis consumption parties where you can go watch the Super Bowl and consume. So basically, there's been lounges that have popped up in the Missouri area that are now membership only. So you can pay a daily membership, a weekly or a monthly, even some places take a yearly membership fee. And then you're allowed to come into this lounge. Basically, it's got TVs, some have, arcades, ping pong, all sorts of other, fun pool, other stuff that you can do while you're there, and you can consume cannabis. There's no alcohol sold, but there's lots of fun. Karaoke night was just held with the place that I'm going to today on Friday night. So the one that I'm going to is in downtown Kansas City. It's called the Tree Lounge. It's on McGee Street. And there's quite a few of them here in Kansas City area that are popping up. And they're all over. One of my good buddies is hosting one down at the Lake of the Ozarks at the Regalia at the Dab Stars Lounge. So there's all sorts of these lounges popping over the state of Missouri where you can go, be with amongst your friends, watch a game, play some, games, and enjoy some cannabis. Other things we've noticed around that we're going to celebrate this week are the expungements. Yes, over 175,000 cases have been expunged off records here for nonviolent cannabis crimes. So that's another great issue that we're having here, another win here that we're having here in Kansas City. So hopefully we're going to root on the Chiefs today at the lounge while consuming some cannabis, and I'm going to be there. Check out some video footage from later. Let's go Chiefs! I'm Brandon Jones with the Brazilian Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Stay medicated and educated. Have a great week.
I'm Amy Carter out of Michigan. Next up, it's time for the Chicago clone guy, Mark Allen, with his Illinois Cannabis Report. Mark?
What's up, everybody? I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago clone guy here, reporting from the clone camp about an hour outside of Chicago. This is Bird. What's up, little buddy? We got a lot to report for you today for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Thanks for tuning in. First thing we're going to talk about today is a new state bill 42, which has been proposed here to reverse a reversal of a law that requires your marijuana to be in a smell-proof container when you're transporting it. It also allows the police to search a vehicle if they smell raw cannabis or burnt cannabis. The interesting part of this is that the Illinois Sheriff's Association has come out and literally admitted that they're not really sure how to determine the difference between the raw odor and the burnt odor, and it's kind of conflicted, and I think they're kind of getting tired of putting people in jail over something that's supposed to be legal. But that's State Bill 42, so that's a step in the right direction. We like seeing that. Something else interesting going on right now that I think's, I don't know, kind of, I guess it's going to be, it's going to be more and more, relevant, I think, coming here with the legalization across the country is somebody in the state of Illinois now, with the help of a law firm, has created a class action lawsuit to sue all the major dispensaries here in the state. Cresco, Cannabis, Lesso, Verano, Progressive Holdings, they're all getting sued for an individual supposedly that drank too much RSO oil, Rick Simpson oil. Keep in mind that Rick Simpson oil is directly contributed to helping people with epilepsy, with other ailments, with Parkinson's, with so much. So yes, you're not supposed to drink the whole bottle at once, just like you're not supposed to drink the whole bottle of vodka at once unless you're, trying to hurt yourself. But the point is, people are suing for things that are common sense, but that's the times that we live in right now. But that sums up this week's major news in Illinois. I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago Clone Guy. This is Bird. As you could tell, he's just not comfortable at all with what's going on here. But thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
In New Mexico, the people who run that state's regulation is the Cannabis Control Division. They are asking their elected officials to create a task force that would be charged with shutting down the illicit market in that state. They have also had issues with U.S. Border Patrol officers interfering with the legal cannabis delivery system in that state. So maybe the idea of a task force to support the legal industry is a good idea. If anything, the target of their enforcement should help, not hurt, legal industry operations. In Ohio, 6 months into their adult use of sales, the state legislature is already trying to change the existing laws, and that has not been well received, to say the least. Christina Brisson is our Ohio correspondent, and her report is supported by Yellow Labs, a measured microdose delivery of THC-based tincture. That product is now available in 40 dispensaries in Ohio and now back in Massachusetts at ACS in West Bridgewater and Hall, and now COSA in Marlborough.
Around Columbus, Sophia is a beacon of sensuality who embraces her sensuality and desires. Seeking to enhance intimacy, she tries Yellow Labs' THC Libido Mist. The mist ignites passion, awakening desires, and fostering authentic connections. Empowered by its effects, she embarks on a journey of exploration and intimacy. THC Libido Mist serves as a catalyst, kindling desire and intimacy.
Hi, I'm Christina Brisson with Over the Top Renovations with your weekly Ohio Cannabis Report with Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I apologize for the short report tonight, folks, but my voice is absolutely not cooperating with me. But I at least wanted to touch on the politics going on in Ohio right now. Governor Mike DeWine and Senate Bill 56 are proposing to eliminate the Host Community Cannabis Fund, which currently receives 36% of the tax generated from cannabis revenue, and instead wants to turn it around and use it for things like the jail project and general funds. Other people involved in this fight are calling this a bait-and-switch tax cash grab, which I agree. I hope to see a lot more fight on this and a lot of people speak up. Thank you all. And this is Christina Brisson with your weekly Ohio Cannabis Report with Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
The Ohio Cannabis Report is supported by Yellow Labs and BetterWaysToTHC.com. Search for Yellow Labs near me and find one of 40 dispensaries in Ohio carrying these amazing mists and creams. As we continue to report on the race to become the 25th state in the U.S. to legalize adult use and sale of cannabis, one more is about to enter that race. It's Tennessee. This past week, the Tennessee Cannabis Act was introduced by two state congressmen from the Democratic Party, State Senator Jeff Yarbrough and Larry Miller from the Tennessee House. The law would legalize adult use for over 21-year-olds, add a 15% excise tax on sales, and allow home grow for as many as 12 plants per dwelling. The regulatory body in charge of the industry in that state would be the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. Now, there is also a social justice clause that would release and expunge current prisoners' records for non-violent cannabis offenses. Currently, Tennessee only allows for CBD use, and a poll by Vanderbilt University in Tennessee found overwhelming support for adult use, with 63% of voters in favor of legalization in Tennessee. The most surprising fact was discovered in this poll is that 53% were Republicans who were supporting adult use. Now combine that with the 78% of the Democrats who also support it. Let's see if that state can actually get it done. Now let's check in with Karen Black with the Arizona Cannabis Report, where there's a very active manufacturer who is a big favorite for this weekend's big game, the Super Bowl between Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. 2 cannabis companies are cashing in on sporting events. The Mint Cafe in Tempe, Arizona, took hundreds of orders for Super Bowl Sunday for its cannabis-laced big game meal deal. 25 miles north in Scottsdale, Curaleaf held a week-long celebration at its Arizona headquarters, which is across the street from the Waste Management Phoenix Open Golf Tournament. In business news, New York's Ianthus Capital Holdings is unloading 3 of its Arizona dispensaries and 2 cultivation facilities to Sonoran Roots for a cool $36.5 million. The deal will expand Sonoran Roots' Ponderosa dispensary footprint to 7 retail locations across the state. Ianthus is keeping 1 dispensary in Mesa to maintain a presence here. Meanwhile, Phoenix-based Tilt Holdings is selling off 2 dispensaries in Massachusetts for $2 million in cash. Tilt's handing over its Taunton shop to In Good Health and shutting down its Brockton location. Tilt is maintaining a store in Cambridge, at least for now, while they further evaluate their plant-touching operations. Both transactions are expected to close in the first quarter, pending regulatory approvals. In other interstate news, there's some drama unfolding in Missouri that might sound familiar. Arizona-based cannabis investor Michael Halo is in hot water over there, linked to hundreds of social equity license applications. Missouri regulators are calling these deals predatory, and they're cracking down on out-of-state middlemen. Halo defends his actions, saying he's just providing resources to those who need it most. Mr. Halo has previously faced similar allegations here in Arizona. A couple more cannabis-related bills made it into Arizona's 57th legislature before the deadline, including a comprehensive hemp bill. Key points include creating a distinction between industrial hemp and hemp-derived products, expanding licensing and compliance requirements, and improving testing, safety, labeling, consumer protections, and enforcement. And lastly, the judging period for the High Times 2025 Arizona Cannabis Cup has begun and will continue through April 6th. Also, time is almost up to smoke sneakers for a chance to win $10,000 cash from the Mazor Collective. February 13th is the last date to enter. That's all for this week's Arizona Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Our regular California correspondent, Dean Naguib, is off this weekend, but recovery from the historic destructive wildfires continues. History will show that this year's fires have been the most destructive ever, with 16,000 structures destroyed in the 47,000 acres that was reduced to ash. On Wednesday of this past week, Governor Gavin Newsom offered to defer annual fees for licensed cannabis operators in certain zip codes around the Los Angeles area. Many of those structures were either grow facilities that were destroyed by the smoke and dispensaries like Rise in Pasadena and High Tide in Malibu, who suffered major damage. One of the largest chains of cannabis dispensaries in California is Embark, and they've organized a GoFundMe campaign with monies going directly to cannabis companies who are struggling to rebuild. You can find the United Cannabis Community Fire Relief Fund And of course, any denomination is encouraged. They're still short of their goal of just $90,000. And so far, they have just 137 donations from $10 all the way up to $16,000, all tax deductible. So if you really want to help the cause in California, log on and give what you can. Now, let's check in with Joe Parsons in Virginia. He has a story this week about an advocate in that state who got busted for an unlicensed pop-up store and was facing over 100 years in jail. Here's Joe with a story of Don Morris.
I'm Joe Parsons from the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is a Virginia Cannabis special report on Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Today, I'm in Louisa County, standing in front of the Louisa County Courthouse for the sentencing of Don Morris. If you've been following us on Pro Cannabis Media, you already know that Don Morris is the owner of Higher Education. She was also facing a 160-year jail sentence for running an illegal pop-up cannabis operation in September of 2023.
It's not going to change the fact that I believe that cannabis is an important part of human existence and that it is something that should be legal and free, and that we were given these plants. Plants should not be regulated like this, and that it is important for people to know the value of cannabis and psilocybin so that they can personally make their lives better on a daily basis as opposed to big pharmaceutical.
The good news is she did not get 160 years. The bad news is that she was sentenced to a total of 22 and a half years for running this pop-up operation. She'll only have to serve 15 months as the rest of her sentence was indeed suspended. This is a small win for the cannabis community because most of the cannabis-related charges were indeed reduced down to next to nothing. If it wasn't for the fact that there was mushrooms involved, which is still classified as a heavily illegal Controlled One substance in Virginia, she would have probably not even served any jail time. So, this is proof that legislation is working. Speaking to your congressmen, your senators, it does make a difference. Thinking about running an illegal pop-up shop in Virginia, you better think twice, because they don't play when it comes to the jail time. Not only will Don Morris have to serve at least 15 months, her life will be upended for the next 22 years. Until next time, this has been Joe Parsons reporting from Louisa County and reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Please stay lifted.
Well, that will do it for the B Block, our second section of our weekly Cannabis Coast to Coast News report. Coming up is, of course, my conversation with an Ohio lobbyist named Tim Johnson, who's a retired law enforcement, a trainer, and an activist in that legal state. Now, even though adult use is now legal, the fight continues in the Ohio legislature because a lot of those lawmakers want to change the rules in the industry, and it's only been operational for 6 months. Don't go away. Now, are you fearful that this is going to change what is already an existing market?
Well, first I'll say this. We offered them a participation trophy in this, but they decided that they wanted the gold medal.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore, so I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now, if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, Add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. Welcome back to the C Block, or final section of this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm PCM TV founder Jimmy Young, filling in for Alaina Pinto, who is on assignment in Quebec this weekend. Now, a reminder, if you want to follow our weekly news show and get access to our documentation of the fight to end cannabis prohibition over the past 4 years in this country, including the green rush and the market correction in the industry, as far as investment capital is concerned, you can go to our, take our QR code and go to the App Store or Google Play. And of course, you too can sign up and get that downloadable app. Meanwhile, Doug Miller is keeping his eye high on Wall Street of all the publicly traded stocks. And we'll also hear from Pam Schmiel from New York and a sign of normalcy from Broadway.
This is Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Pam Schmiel reporting from New York. Chime and Chill, a New York-based hemp wellness company, is making history as the first to introduce Spanish language packaging to its tincture and skincare product line. In a press release, the Latino-owned brand stated, "As a Latino-owned company, we understand the importance of Spanish translation in reaching and empowering underserved communities." Their products are now available in dispensaries across Spanish-speaking neighborhoods. And Green Thumb Industries may be getting into the concert business. CEO Ben Kovler recently appointed legendary New York music entrepreneur Peter Shapiro to the company's board of directors. Shapiro, known for producing acclaimed festivals and owning iconic New York City music venues, brings deep industry experience to the table. He shared his excitement, saying, "I'm honored that Ben has asked me to join the board, and I look forward to helping unlock new opportunities for the company and its brands during this exciting time." And finally, the travel agency, a New York dispensary, has just made Broadway history by becoming the first cannabis business to advertise in Playbill, the iconic theater magazine that's given to every audience member. The ad reads, "Experience a matinee for your mind." The ad also coincides with the opening of the dispensary's third location in New York City's Theater District. That's this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Pam Schmiel reporting from New York.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The U.S. Senate Banking Committee had a hearing on February 5th, and it was supposed to focus on the impacts of debanking on federally legal businesses and their workers, and whether there was improper influence by federal financial regulators. But that didn't stop committee members and one witness from calling the attention to ongoing banking issues on the state legal cannabis businesses. Senator Elizabeth Warren, she urged further investigation into the issue, arguing that it shouldn't be happening. After the hearing, the U.S. stock saw significant gains in an apparent reaction. So let's take a look at the ETF MSOS and see how that chart looks. It did pop up right after the hearing, but it started to pull back as the reaction settled in. It is setting up, so I'll be keeping an eye on the cannabis stocks to see exactly what they want to do. So trade smart and lock in those profits. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, I'm Doug Miller.
I'm Amy Carter with Michigan Weedsters, bringing you this week's Michigan Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. First up, the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency has announced a voluntary recall of various flavors of Platinum Vape branded vape cartridges due to the presence of MCT oil, a potentially harmful diluting agent. This marks the first recall since the CRA implemented testing requirements for MCT oil in October. CRA Executive Director Brian Hanna expressed appreciation for the collaboration between RWB Michigan testing labs and the CRA staff to ensure the safety of consumers. However, many are questioning why the issue only surfaced now despite prior awareness. The CRA has put unsold recalled products on hold, blocking their sale but not ordering destruction. In other news, a federal court jury has awarded Michigan cannabis grower Hello Farms $32 million in damages after finding that Curaleaf, the largest cannabis company in the U.S., breached its purchase agreement. This ruling fouls nearly 4 years of legal battles over Curaleaf's failure to honor a contract to buy thousands of pounds of Hello Farms cannabis, citing falling market prices. The jury's decision underscores the ongoing challenges in the evolving cannabis market. Additionally, Pancana has announced the temporary closure of its greenhouse operation, leading to layoffs. While specific numbers are not yet available, the Pinconning Township-based company cites challenging market conditions in Michigan's cannabis industry as the reason for this decision. Pancana assures that their retail and processing operations will remain unaffected, and they aim to rehire affected employees when the market improves. And don't forget to mark your calendars for Hash Bash on April 5th. That's it for this week. In Michigan, I'm Amy Carter with Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I am PCM TV founder Jimmy Young, and we're so proud to be bringing in a gentleman I have a lot of respect for from the great state of Ohio. His name is Tim Johnson. He has a great background in law enforcement training, and he had a career in all that, and now he is a lobbyist in Ohio and a cannabis advocate. Tim, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Hey, thanks, Jimmy, for having me back, and go Buckeyes, OH.
I knew I was going to kind of throw that in, but I decided to let you be the cheerleader on that one. Anyway, lots going on in the state of Ohio. The market has opened. The adult use market is open. There are now, it's all legal. But man, are there issues there that they're trying to now change in that legislature? Something I remember when we talked, you predicted that once this law gets into place, the people that are in charge of the politics of Ohio, the Ohio legislature, are going to do the best they can to change it up. And that's what's going on now. Are you fearful that this is going to change what is already an existing market?
Well, first I'll say this. We offered them a participation trophy in this, but they decided that they wanted the gold medal. So that would be the GOP leadership. They're the pushback in this. I think once it's all done and said, I believe the people, the cannabis industry, the license holders, and the cannabis community, the consumers and patients, I think will come out ahead on this with what they're trying to do. The Senate Bill 56 is the problem right now, and really all it is a redundant duplicate of what issue 2 currently. Jim Canepa, our director of Division of Cannabis Control, is doing a fantastic job on promulgating the new rule packages, and we're still in the process of doing that. So, some of the examples that we're seeing in this redundant Senate Bill 56 is the fact of you have to have child-resistant, non-attractive packaging. Well, we've had that since 2018. It's already in the books. There's other things in there that just make no sense that they're already in place. They made, the senator that introduced it made a comment of, well, we don't want to be sitting at the ballpark watching our 9-year-old kid play ball while the people sitting next to us with our other children are smoking a joint. Well, that's already in the book, sir. That's already a law. You can't smoke in public, and we wouldn't do that. I guess that's the dumbing down of those who resist this. They don't understand the cannabis community as a whole. We're very respectful to society. We're very respectful to ourselves, our own missions, and so forth. But when you get this a committee chairperson on this Senate General Government, she is Christine Rogner. She could be a good senator, but when you make a statement that it's our obligation as this Senate committee to put safe parameters in place for what 2.2 million people in Ohio voted for. It's, I'm looking at them, I'm saying, well, who are you using for experts to put this in place? Because the experts are all sitting out here in the audience and we're contesting what you're saying. So you're talking political jargon that really means nothing other than, you want to have your way. So yeah, there's going to be a lot. I think, we're rallying now. We got many calls to actions going on. The advocates are working. We've got the lobby day coming up. Nearly every cannabis event we're having right now. There's 2 of them this weekend. It's all about 56, and then of course Wednesday they dropped the new hemp bill, Senate Bill 86. But I think we'll fare pretty well in the end when it's all said and done. Of course, it'll continue. Next year there'll be something else introduced, in the year after, just like we are with our medical program. 6 years into it, and they're still introducing language. Well, I am, anyways, trying to fix that and correct it.
That entire interview with Tim Johnson and myself will be available on demand after Thursday on our PCM TV app and website. Now, next week in Baltimore, Maryland, there's a big leadership conference that was founded by the Women's Grow Network. Women's Grow is the largest network of women in the cannabis and hemp industries, and this leadership conference is part of their mission to empower women to succeed and lead in the cannabis industry. Our own New Jersey correspondent, Jill Goldsberry, has more on this event in Baltimore, Maryland over February 17th and 18th.
Welcome to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Jill Goldsberry with your New Jersey reports. And here's what's going on in New Jersey. It's a snow day, hence the hat. And today we are highlighting a really important event that I hope that y'all will be able to attend. It is a Women Grow 2025 Leadership Summit happening on February 17th through the 18th at the Gaylord National Convention Center in Maryland, just off in the National Harbor area of Maryland. And this year's summit is literally a call to action for women's fundamental and the right to use cannabis as medicine. And we all know that that is very important. This year's keynote speaker is Brittany Griner, who has been an advocate and speaker about cannabis and its policies. Representing New Jersey at this event will be Precious Osagie, founder of Precious Cannabis pre-roll company. I'm sure you all know it. You can find it at many of the dispensaries in New Jersey. She will be on hand discussing investing in the cannabis industry, a crucial conversation as businesses navigate this evolving market. So key industry leaders, entrepreneurs will all be on hand. For more information on the Leadership Summit at Women Grow, go to womengrow.com for more information. I am Jill Goldsberry for the New Jersey Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, and I will see you at the next report.
Amazingly, Jill did a report on the Women's Grow event, and on Friday, I got a chance to talk to the CEO of Women's Grow, Dr. Shonda Macias.
Women Grow is so important because we empower each other through our resources, through our spirit, through our character, and we inspire each other and support each other to go out there and fight for our businesses, for our health rights, and also for our political views. And all of that means something more. It means the survival of our industry. And as you know, Jimmy, right now, our industry is under attack. The 280Es taking businesses down. Healthcare rights are being revoked. You also see how the government promises have changed overnight. And we need to come together, and we are coming together to fight all things, because you know what? Women get stuff done, and we are ready. And we will come together with our call of action and figure out how we're going to thrive in this industry.
Okay, I'll admit it, Alaina Pinto does a much better job than I do of anchoring our news. But I got to admit, I love digging up some stories that I had never heard of before, including this next one that we're going to leave you with. as the final story on Cannabis Coast to Coast News. It's about a scientist in Brazil who's made a discovery about a plant that hasn't even been reviewed yet by peers. However, Dr. Rodrigo Moura Neto has been able to extract cannabidiol, or CBD, from another plant that is not the cannabis sativa plant. In fact, it grows wild in northern South America, Central America, and in Mexico. The plant, we'll call it Trema for short, because it's a very long name, so we'll call it Trema. And it gives this shrub an opportunity to open up an entire international market. Now, it has nothing to do with cannabis sativa, but it has CBD, a cannabinoid, in it. Now, you do understand that cannabis is still illegal in Brazil, but this shrub is fair game. And it's not just growing wild in Brazil. Check out the map of where this plant grows all over Central America, northern South America, Mexico, and look, at the far right, above the U.S. Virgin Islands, there's a peninsula there. I think that is Florida. That's right, the state of Florida grows Trema wild, and you can get CBD out of it, at least according to this doctor. You know, God works in very mysterious ways, since that plant is ready to rock, already legal, outside, and it is growing wild from that cannabis sativa family. Anyway, 7 years in this business, and I never thought I would be an amateur botanist and definitely not a professional. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I want to give a special healing vibe wish to Jeff Aker, our master gardener in Florida. He was in a bad car accident a few weeks ago, and we just want to make sure from everybody here at the Cannabis Coast to Coast News team, we wish you the very best, a quick healing, and get back to it. And hey, Jeff, check out Trema, will you? Because if you could get cannabidiol, CBD, out of it, that could be a whole new ball game down in Florida. Anyway, that'll do it. Remember, it is indeed a whole new world of weed out there, so consume it responsibly. And yes, Alaina Pinto will definitely be back next week. Have a good one, and congratulations to the Eagles for beating those Chiefs in Super Bowl 59 to win a Super Bowl and keep the Chiefs from getting to that three-peat, which makes all New England Patriots fans very happy. Have a good week, everybody.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Pro Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Bee Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Debbie Facey with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today, and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Alaina Pinto, delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast, PCM TV's weekly roundup of industry news from California to New York. I'm Alaina Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. Get your cannabis news fix with Pro Cannabis Media. We're here to keep you informed and entertained. Stay tuned and stay lifted.